And it looks like it's setting it up. And it looks like it is live. I can see it at this moment. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To all those that's viewing us out there in Baltimore City, my name is Corey McCray, for those that I'm not familiar with. I represent the 45th Legislative District, and I have the proud honor of serving as the chair for the Baltimore City Senate delegation. Just wanted to reiterate, thank you for joining us tonight for our delegation's inaugural grassroots briefing. Before we get started tonight, may we have a moment of silence for Mr. Dontel Barksdale? Hold on, I need to close my YouTube. Apologies, just a little bit of technical difficulties. I got it under control now. Let me just once again say good evening. Senator Corey McCray for the 45th Legislative District, and I have the proud honor of serving as the chair for the Baltimore City Senate delegation. Just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight for the delegation's inaugural briefing. Before we get started tonight, if we could just take a moment of silence. I know that my colleagues, Senator Murray Washington, Senator Hayes, and Senator Carter, and Senator Ferguson, and Senator Sidnor know that we lost a very proud, heroic Baltimorean last night, and just want to take a minute to do a moment of silence. Thank you. For those that don't know, we lost a very good soldier for the city of Baltimore City. We lost Dante Barksdale. He was doing heavy work, great work, transforming our communities by connecting with disconnected to ensure that reduction and prevention of violence was happening within our city of Baltimore. This loss will be felt throughout Baltimore, and it's in his honor, we must commit to working harder to promote safer streets throughout our great city. At this moment, I'd just like to take the time to recognize my colleagues. I'd like to start by recognizing them as I see them in order. Senate President Bill Ferguson, Senator Murray L. Washington, Senator Charles Sidnor, Senator Antonio Hayes, and I know that Senator Carter will be joining us in one. In addition to the impact on public health and safety, the COVID-19 pandemic has had major effects on our economy. The pandemic has severely influenced the success of our small businesses. And that's why the Senate delegation at this moment would like to spend an hour together hearing what resources are available for small businesses and from small business owners directly. We will have two panels, one comprised of state agency heads and leaders of entities, and the others will be small business owners across the city of Baltimore. Panels will last for approximately 20 minutes each. After that panel, we'll have an opportunity to get questions from our senators. At this moment, I'd just like to introduce panel one. Panel one, and I'll do an introduction and then we'll go into the presentation. But panel one is joined by one of our former colleagues, Secretary Kelly Schultz of the Maryland Department of Commerce, Secretary Kenneth Holt of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, the CEO, Mr. Colin Tarbert, the President and CEO of Baltimore Development Corporation, Mr. Paul Bardick from the Maryland Small Business Resource Center, and my friend, Mr. Stanley Tucker, President and CEO of the Meridian Management Group. And in that order, start the presentations. Madam Secretary.
Okay, thank you so much. First, Senator, I want to thank you and congratulations on your appointment to the chair of the Senate delegation for Baltimore City. So proud of you and everything that you do and the shared work of this whole entire delegation. And going back, as Senator Washington says, a decade now, we've been working hard on all fronts. So for the record, my name is Kelly Schultz. I'm the Maryland Secretary of Commerce. And I'm just going to take a few very brief minutes to do an overview of the work that we do at the Department of Commerce, but then also to supply you with some information about the resources that we provide specifically for small businesses. So what does the Department of Commerce do? Commerce is the state's leading economic development agency. We work closely with our partner organizations to attract new businesses to the state, to keep our existing businesses in Maryland, and to help businesses expand and create new jobs. We do this in a number of ways, including by providing financial assistance and connecting businesses with experts to help solve problems. We have a number of targeted tax credit and financial assistance programs that offer assistance to different sorts of businesses across the state. And specifically for small business assistance, let's talk about that for a second. Here's a few of our programs that are specifically aimed at small, minority, and women-owned businesses. We're going to talk a little bit with Mr. Stanley Tucker from the Meridian Management Group, but he oversees a program at the Department of Commerce that we affectionately call Ms. BIDFA because it's a very long name. It's the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority. This is a program that provides loans to economically disadvantaged businesses and entrepreneurs who might have trouble accessing capital. The Maryland Economic Adjustment Fund is another type of a resource. This provides loans of up to $150,000 for small and underserved businesses with fewer than 50 employees. This, interesting to note, was recapitalized last year as a revolving loan fund for businesses impacted by COVID-19. So this had not been a program that had been heavily utilized until this past year, where we're setting up a $700,000 loan program with this revolving loan fund. Our small, minority, and women-owned business account provides funding for businesses and is through a program funded by the slot machine revenues at the state casinos. We'll all remember that wonderful piece of legislation that we worked through many years ago. We call this fund our VLT fund. And we have 8 fund managers across the state that manage those funds to small businesses specifically. Our military personnel and veteran-owned small business loan program provides no interest loans to businesses owned by military reservists, veterans, and National Guard personnel. We also have a dedicated director of minority business outreach, and her name is Tanya Wigfall. And I point that out because the Department of Commerce had never had a dedicated person in the department to specifically look at minority outreach. A few years ago, we recognized that as being part of our priority in the way that we wanted to move forward. She has hit the ground running. COVID set us all back just a little bit, but I know she is out there every day looking to make contacts and very well versed in what minority-owned businesses and what their needs are. We also have industry experts. So when we talk about small businesses and the resources that we had, I just wanted to very quickly talk about the industries, because just because you're a small business doesn't mean that you are pigeonholed into one industry or the other. We at the Department of Commerce, with our relief programs anyway, we're looking at businesses of under 50 employees. And that can be in any industry that we serve. And we do have industry experts. We don't just provide financial assistance, but we also provide guidance and expertise. We have subject matter experts in various industries to help connect businesses with a variety of resources. Our team includes experts in biohealth and life sciences, cybersecurity and aerospace, education and workforce, agribusiness and energy, manufacturing, and of course, entrepreneurship and small business. We also have a team of 12 business development representatives who are each responsible for different geographic regions in the area, all across the state. And their job is to know their territories. They're understanding the unique assets and the opportunities and the challenges that is in their backyards, and how to be able to move those businesses forward. So just very briefly, how have we helped small businesses over the course of COVID? And I know that the legislators on the call have been very well briefed about the role that Commerce has played with small business relief. But we have done, I would say, yeoman's work in trying to be able to get out that business relief to those businesses. Again, under 50 employees in the case of our programs. We've provided more than $220 million into support to over 12,000 individual small businesses and nonprofits. I'm not going to go through all of the funds right now with you, and I'm happy to answer questions, but we have an additional $50 million that has gone out to all 23 of the counties plus Baltimore City, $50 million for hotel relief, and $80 million total for relief for restaurants. A big partner of ours in the help for small businesses has been Department of Housing and Community Development, and I know Secretary Ken Holt is going to speak on that. I also want to say that the other partner on the call is the Small Business Development Corp, SBDC, and Paul Bardak is going to talk about our ongoing partnership, but it is critical to our success in order to be able to make sure that all of our stakeholders work together. And with that spirit of working together, the governor is going to be introducing a bill that he announced last week. And thank you to Senate President Ferguson for helping to spearhead this moving forward later on this week. It's called the Relief Act of 2021. And this is a bill that's going to be talking about the economic relief for working families, small businesses, and people who have lost their jobs to the pandemic. It's a $1 billion proposal that's coming to the Maryland legislature. It's a direct stimulus payment to low to moderate income Marylanders, up to $450 for individuals and $750 for families. Sales tax credits for small businesses, up to $3,000 per month for up to 4 months. That's $12,000 that small businesses can earn back from their taxes. Codifying an emergency order staving off any sudden unemployment tax hikes for businesses for the remainder of 2021. That's a big deal. Repeals of all state and local income taxes on unemployment benefits. So all of our constituents across the state that have been receiving unemployment benefits will not have a tax implication because of COVID. And it prevents Maryland businesses from being hit with tax increases because they accepted emergency COVID-19 grant or loan funds from the state. Anything you got from my organization, Secretary Holt's organization, or any of the others will not be taxable income if this bill passes. This will bring total COVID economic relief offered by the state of Maryland to $1.7 billion. Governor Hogan has worked really hard with this legislature and with his cabinet to be able to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our community. Senator McCray, I want to say thank you very much. Thank you to your entire delegation. I know I said it at the beginning when we were in our private room, but I want to say happy Martin Luther King Day because he had words of hope. And I think what I would like to end with today is that there is hope. And all of us working together on this call is just proof that we all have the ability to move forward and come up with very logical, reasonable solutions to both our health and our economic crisis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And before we go to Secretary Holt, I just want to acknowledge that my colleague, Senator Joe P. Carter, has joined us. Thank you, Senator Carter. And now we'll move to Secretary Holt. Secretary, please unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yep.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. It's an honor to be here on Martin Luther King's birthday, and I very much appreciate the chance to share with Secretary Schultz information about what the Hogan administration is accomplishing from the standpoint of economic recovery. The governor has been very intent, both addressing the medical crisis and now the economic crisis. And he's given us the capacity, both financially as well as the necessary equipment to deal with the crisis very effectively. From the standpoint of our department, we're primarily focused on rental assistance. There have been a number of programs that have flowed capital through our department to assist with nonprofit relief. And as Secretary Schultz pointed out, this has been very much a collaborative effort. The nonprofit assistance that was sort of the initial round of support deployed about $40 million. There were roughly 1,800 nonprofits across the state that were receiving money varying from $50,000 or greater. And those nonprofits employed over 54,000 individuals. So the relief was extremely necessary, as necessary for a nonprofit as it was for a for-profit business. In Baltimore City, all of these programs have sort of prioritized assisting city residents. And we have a list that articulates exactly who the recipients were and what the amounts that they received. In addition to nonprofit assistance, there were behavioral health organizations and disability-related organizations that were sort of on the front lines of addressing COVID that received approximately $10 million. The agencies that were involved were Housing, Commerce, and the Department of Disabilities. And we all worked very cooperatively together. We shared employees and shared the resources and got it out the door very quickly and very effectively. As the crisis sort of built, more money that the governor found through Rainy Day and a variety of, whether it was CARES Act funding or Rainy Day funds, he marshaled these resources and we distributed them very, very rapidly. It was clear to us that a lot of tourist organizations that were sort of anchor institutions like the aquarium and the Baltimore Zoo, the Great Blacks and Wax Museum, the Poe Museum, all of those were suffering terribly. And so there was a anchor institution, sort of tourist-related organization effort that provided in Baltimore City about 15 awards. All told, there was about $8 million that supported that program. Then the next iteration was a focus on the entertainment industry, live performance venues. And we have $30 million that was just announced last week that has been extremely helpful to 92 live performance venues around the state, and about 23 venues in the city received financial support. So from the standpoint of the COVID response, it's been aggressive, very rapid. We're just beginning to consider very large support for rental assistance. Now, we've had a parallel deployment of funds using some CARES Act money and some state money. We had about $15.5 million that came from the state. That went to projects, roughly 45,000 units were eligible to apply for this money. There's about 15.5 million that went out for rental support to state-funded projects. And that money has been deployed. We did it on sort of a rolling monthly basis. And thousands of households have been helped. In addition, there was CARES Act funding through the Community Development Block Grant Program, and about $26 million of that money has gone out to local municipalities, some nonprofits that have stood up rental relief programs. We also had roughly $15 million of additional funds on top of about 15 million that we get from the state for homelessness. So there was a huge extra amount of money that helped the continuums of care around the state address homelessness. And we have a consistent decline in the point in time count of the numbers of homeless people in Maryland, whether they're homeless youth or chronically homeless, veterans homeless. We've really been making great headway in addressing homelessness. And there was significant more money as a result of COVID that helped out tremendously. The forthcoming award for rental assistance to the state is about $400 million. We expect that roughly 250 million will flow through our department. So there's some money that's going direct to Baltimore City and to what they call entitlement areas, sort of the larger jurisdictions, Montgomery County, Prince George's County. And then there's a very significant amount that's coming to our department. And we will use the approach that we learned initially when we deployed the state money and the CDBG money. We basically stood up kind of parallel programs, one that we ran, the other that we used existing local entities that had stood up effective programs and that had relationships with property owners. They knew where the problem renters might come from. And so they were able to quickly address that. So we're going to have a kind of a hybrid where there will be a continuum of what we're doing for state-funded properties. And then we will also use our local relationships for the deployment of that 250 million. And it'll probably last at least a year, maybe even longer than that. So it could get into 2022. As you know, Governor Hogan employed a eviction moratorium, and that's still in effect. Also, we worked with local lenders, roughly 60 or more bank lenders and mortgage servicers in the state. We worked closely with them so that there would be no foreclosures on mortgages. And I believe that that workout has been very effective because what they did simply was to just extend the amortization life of the mortgage for another year or another 2 years or whatever is going to be required. So, and then, you know, we have our basic programs that work closely with commerce from a small business standpoint. We have a micro grant program that we just made 13 awards. We're going to do another round of that. I think there were 5 of those 13 awards were in Baltimore City. We've just announced our low-income housing tax credit round, where we got 51 applications. These tax credits provide cash value to developers, and we have a substantial number in Baltimore City. It will, over a 10-year period, provide cash value of $250 million for the construction of quality workforce housing. Our Maryland mortgage program, we issued over $1 billion worth of mortgages last year, double what we did in the prior year, and we're at the same pace this year. And down payment assistance is making that happen. Rental housing works that we get from the state is making the construction of affordable workforce housing really possible because it complements the 9% tax credit awards that we have in our competitive round. We're focusing in Baltimore City on Perkins, the demolition, and then the rebuild of that area. And that's going to create a seamless, almost new residential community from East Baltimore waterfront all the way north of Johns Hopkins and north of the railroad tracks. It's been really an astounding success. EBDI combining
Secretary Hope.
Yeah, sorry.
Just for time purposes, we're going to make sure
Yeah.
we get everybody in, but I'm sure that the senators also going to have questions too.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You could just,
I apologize.
please. No. If you could just start the wrap up.
Yep. No, I think that's good. You know, our programs, Project Core, some of these sort of key areas, I think the Pimlico revitalization, Park Heights, Penn Station, Johnson Square, we're highly focused on Baltimore City, and we'll have substantial capital to do a lot of good.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next, Mr. Colin Tolbert, BDC.
Great.
Keep it to 5 minutes, Colin. I'm sure that everyone is going to have more than enough questions too.
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having us. Thank you all the senators for having me represent BDC here. Also wanted to acknowledge Jeff Hargrave, who's not just a small business city owner, but he's also the vice chairman of the BDC. So it's great to see a familiar face on here. For those of you who are not familiar, Baltimore Development Corporation, as we go by 3 letters, BDC, we are the city's economic development agency. And I'm going to focus today on our COVID response, but I wanted to say it's been an intense, 9 to 10 months for us and our staff. The small business community in the city, it's not just numbers. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. Literally, went for a run this afternoon and ran into a small business owner who has their food truck out trying to make ends meet for their family. So it's been a tough time for everybody, and we certainly want to be there for our community members and our small business community. So with that, the first thing that BDC did was we launched a survey. We started to connect with our small business owners. We launched a website, which is still active. It's called Baltimore Together. So I encourage any Baltimore City businesses that need assistance to go to www.baltimoretogether.com. There's a contact us button. And when you click on that button, you'll fill out a survey. And that survey connects you to a technical assistance network that BDC is leading. We were very fortunate to receive some foundation funding and partner with 18 other organizations across the city. So when you get connected with us, you'll also get connected to a whole bunch of other resources and great partners. And we've served about 1,400 businesses through that technical assistance network. And we're helping businesses figure out what's available, how to fill out the forms for PPP or for EIDL. Some of these things are very confusing, especially for our micro businesses or our sole proprietors. And so we've established a network. The innovative piece of that too is it's not just folks like us that are technical assistants, but 10 of the organizations that are part of the network are grassroots organizations, which is the title of tonight's hearing. And they're all led by people of color. So we're really trying to connect with our most vulnerable businesses, especially those that tend to be left behind in economic recovery. Next, we've deployed about $15 million in economic aid over the last 10 months or so. 13 million of that, the bulk of it has been in direct grants to small businesses. We've issued over 1,000 grants to Baltimore City small businesses. In addition, we've used funds to support local makers through our Made in Baltimore program to produce personal protective equipment, PPE, to hand sanitizer, mask, gowns, you name it. We're actually producing all of that here locally with small businesses that have pivoted from making hand soap to hand sanitizer, from making t-shirts to gowns, which has been great to see. And we've been supporting those enterprises that are actually growing during this time. And then lastly, we launched a program in partnership with the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins, as well as Neighborhood Design Center, a local nonprofit that's been in the community for a long time, to do design for distancing. And this was very popular over the summer, where we readapted a lot of our public spaces and sidewalks and streets to create areas for outdoor dining and other commerce, and that's been received very helpfully. And then I wanted to just touch on the CARES Act money that we received, the first 2 rounds of small businesses. And actually all of our grants thus far have not been first come, first serve. we took a very different approach in giving everyone the opportunity to submit their paperwork. We knew a lot of small businesses needed time to prepare. And so it hasn't been easy, but every single application is reviewed by one of our team members, and we basically rank and prioritize them based on other sources of funds that they would have received or need. And we've targeted our businesses that are owned by people of color. We've targeted women-owned businesses, and we've targeted businesses that are owned by city residents in our neighborhoods. And so the majority of funds have gone towards in those two rounds for businesses owned by people of color, women-owned businesses, and local businesses, over 60% in each category, which we were proud of. And the last round that we did was for restaurant aid. Very thankful to the state and Department of Commerce for giving us the funds. We had about $6.5 million that we deployed to both our public markets and over 350 restaurants. Again, we widened the criteria for those small businesses. Originally we had a cap at $1 million, I believe, for our first two rounds, again, targeting those really small businesses. And then as we were able to deploy aid, we've widened the range of businesses that can apply. And so lastly, I just want to say that the next round of funding will be coming out in the coming weeks. For restaurants, again, we've received additional money from the state. We have $3.9 million that BDC will be allocating to restaurants, and that will launch in the coming weeks and will be deployed by the end of March.
Thank you, Mr. Talbert. We're going to now move to Mr. Paul Bardick.
Chairman McCray, Senators, thank you so very, very much for allowing me to join you today. And MLK Day today is it's especially meaningful at this time of year in our nation. So thank you very much. I don't know if you all know about the Maryland Small Business Development Center, so let me tell you a little bit about our organization. We offer two primary services statewide. The first is one-on-one business consulting to entrepreneurs, whether established business owners or prospective business owners. And that service costs nothing to the client. Consulting includes everything and anything from what one should do before launching a company, to developing a business plan, to marketing and pricing considerations, to exit strategies, and pretty much everything in between. And we also offer group training on various managerial or financial topics. Today, solely online through group webinars, but God willing, hopefully one day again soon, both online and in person. That service is offered at a nominal cost to the client, say $10, $15, $25, but we've waived that small fee during the pandemic. And so last March, COVID-19 hit Maryland with a vengeance, and the governor shut the state down. And simultaneously, starting back in March and going on through today, the small business community, and especially minority small business owners, were devastated. Through no fault of their own, stores were closing left and right, and the owners' lifelong dreams, again, through no fault of their own, those dreams were dying. So my staff, which has always had a reputation for working hard and putting in long hours, redoubled their efforts. 10-hour workdays gave way to 16 or 18-hour workdays, day after day after day after day. And that allowed us indeed to make a huge difference. So let me tell you a little bit about our work since the pandemic began, and I'm going to just focus on Baltimore City. Since last March, we worked extensively on an ongoing basis, often for months at a time, with well over 500 Baltimore City business owners. Most of these were people of color. We helped those 500 plus clients raise over $6.3 million to stay in business and, in some instances, even to grow their companies during this rough time. Through our work, we helped support over 4,100 Baltimore City jobs that otherwise might have been lost or relocated elsewhere. And despite the economic despair so many now feel, we even helped start 14 new Baltimore City companies during this period. But that's not enough for us. So we expanded our partnership with Morgan State to help us collaboratively to provide even more of our services to neighborhoods throughout the city. We're in the process of intensifying our staff presence in Baltimore City by creating a new Baltimore region in which more consulting staff eventually would be added to provide our services to more of the city's current and prospective business owners. And our staff has become fluent in all the rapidly changing federal and state and local economic development programs of potential use by Baltimore City business owners. The Emergency Economic Impact Disaster Loans, the Payroll Protection Program, the revised SBA 7A loan program, some of the programs talked about by Secretary Schultz and Holt, and so on. So we're expert in those. Anyway, our time today is brief. I wish we had longer to talk about this. But in conclusion, let me suggest that you and your constituents check out our website. I'll give it to you now, www.marylandsbdc.org. That's Maryland spelled out, sbdc.org. And that way you can learn a little bit more about us and what we do and how to reach us. But I'd especially, when you go to that site, I'd especially urge you to check out one particular document that's posted on our website, something that we created and add to on a continuous basis and have been doing so since the pandemic began. We have something on our website called the Small Business Recovery Guide, and it lists all the financial and other services now offered during the pandemic, which may be of help to the businesses in your various communities and serving your various constituencies. So again, check out our website, www.marylandsbdc.org. And with that, I'll stop and maybe take some questions later on. So again, thank you for allowing me to join you. Thanks much.
Thank you, Mr. Barter. Now I'm gonna go to Mr. Stanley Tucker. You're still on mute, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you very much, Senator McCray, for inviting me to this event to share with the audience our various financing components. And also I'd like to thank Secretary Schultz for really helping us with the COVID-19 funds. They were very, very strategic and we were able to deploy them very fast. First, I want to talk about the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority. It's our oldest component, if you will, and it should be noted that these various components have been designed to supplement and complement each other. So if someone walks into our office, depends on which window or windows that we can help a company. We can birth a company and stay with them to an orderly exit, including going public. The Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority is our oldest component. We have various parts of that. We have a contract financing where we provide working capital financing for business that obtain private and public contracts. We can provide guarantees to banks. We also have an equity participation investment component where we can make equity investments into businesses. And we also have a component where we provide surety bonding. That's all under the Maryland Small Business Development Financing Authority. We have another component that what we call the Maryland Casino Business Investment Fund. Several years ago, we introduced, along with the Black Caucus legislation, when they brought gaming into the state of Maryland, where 1.5% of the gross proceeds of video lottery terminal will go into a fund to invest back into small minority and women-owned businesses here in Maryland. It should be noted that Maryland is the only state in the nation that has utilized this strategy to provide financing for small minority and women-owned businesses. Matter of fact, the state received a national award. Department of Commerce received a national award for this strategy. We also have, we were blessed. We want to thank the governor and Secretary Schultz for providing actually now $10 million. We had COVID-1, $5 million, and for small businesses, small minority and women-owned businesses. That first round, we were able to deploy that $5 million in less than 2.5 months. That's tell you the need that is out there. And then we were blessed again with the governor, Secretary Schultz. We received another $5 million. We in the process of deploying those funds as we speak. And actually, we've actually had to close the website because we can't take any more applications because we'll be overwhelmed. We have more and more applications than funds, but we should be finished deploying those funds probably in the next month or less. So that's a quick overview of the various kinds of financing that we can provide for small, minority, and women-owned businesses, and review it as a strategy and review it as a way of continuing kind of financing. We could birth businesses and stay with them all the way going public. And I'll stop there and open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. At this moment, I'd just like to see if my colleagues have any questions that they would like to ask at this moment. Got it. I do have one for Secretary Schultz, Secretary Holt, and Mr. Tucker. If you could just say your agency and the website that if anyone wanted the services that they could go to, and I'll start with Secretary Schultz.
Sure. I'm just going to give two very briefly, Senator, and it'll be commerce, COMMERCE.maryland.gov. And that'll get you to a host of links on our website. But sometimes an easier path is just to send questions. You, of course, can go explore on that. If you send questions to secretary.commerce@maryland.gov, we can answer from multiple agencies any business questions that any constituent has from multiple agencies. That's secretary.commerce@maryland.gov.
Thank you. And just for the listening audience, before we go to Secretary Holt, we're also putting this information in the Facebook page, the Baltimore City Senate Delegation Facebook page, just as a FYI, under the live section for the video. Secretary Holt.
Hi there. Okay. To reach me directly, kenneth.holt@maryland.gov. And that's my direct email. And any particular question you have, just direct it to me, and then I can push it to the right person. As far as a web address, www.dhcd.gov. I think will reach us. There's a variety of different web addresses, but I think that'll work.
Thank you, Secretary Holt. And Mr. Tucker. Yes, I'll go to our website. It's www.mmgcapitalgroup.com. That's www.mmgcapitalgroup.com, and you'll be able to get information in all our various financing components.
Senator.
Yes, sir.
Senator, let me give you a second email address. And that would be dhcd@maryland.gov.
Got it. dhcd@maryland.gov.
Maryland.gov.
And just want to make sure one time before we go to the second panel, is there any questions from our colleagues? Got it. Just wanted to say thank you all for this opportunity to make sure that Baltimoreans know the governmental agencies and those private sector that's out there helping them. Mr. Barter, especially to you, I wasn't as much aware of everything that you have to offer, but I received a number of texts, and I'm glad that you did say your information asking about it. At this moment, I'm going to go to panel 2. These are the business owners that are living each and every day during these challenging times, just to talk about their experience. It's a very diverse group of business owners and diverse in reference to just what they put out there or services that they provide is what I'm trying to say. At this point, I'm going to introduce, and we'll go in this order, Mr. Jeff Hargrave. Mr. Jeff Hargrave from Mahogany Inc. Miss Deja Kabir from Ice Queen Snowball Shop, Mr. Quentin Lathan from Beauty Plus Beauty Supply, and Dr. Joanne Martin from the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum. And in that order, Mr. Hargrave. And you just have to unmute yourself, Mr. Hargrave.
Wow, technology. Sorry about that, Senator McCray.
No.
Hello, everyone, and so glad to be here tonight. Challenges through COVID. Let me just say that just trying to go to work every day is a challenge. Trying to stay in business is a challenge. We're in construction, so for us, we've been fortunate that we haven't had to deal with some of the things restaurant owners have had to deal with as far as shutdowns. We've been working the whole time, but of course, that means that our people are going out there putting their help on the line, going to these job sites, and of course, PPE. I mean, any help that can be given with PPE, we can't have enough of it. And helping to clean job sites and things like that is very important for us. Just trying to keep your people safe. We had to make a pivot during COVID where we have started working from home, but of course, we've got people out in the field that had to show up every day. And that was really challenging because it really kind of like lets you see the class structure almost. That's one of the things COVID has done, is shown us, where we are, and the people that we really depend on, are not us, CEOs, right? It's the people out there that's doing the day-to-day work every single day. So I found myself having to go out on job sites just because, again, we're in the office and now everyone's working from home, but yet we've got guys at Towson University, University of Maryland, and they're on job sites with 200 and 300 men. So certainly help, with PPE and trying to understand the importance of taking care of your people. That's been my biggest challenge, and really making sure that we don't want to be the elite over here, trying to make everyone feel like they have to get in there and really, show up every day. So we started going to 2-3 day work weeks now in the office. That's some of the things we had to do to change, because I just had to start getting people back in the office. Fortunate enough, we haven't had any outbreaks in the office, but we have had outbreaks on job sites where jobs were being shut down, guys were being sent home. And of course, that's going to affect revenue, that's going to affect profit. So, that's been challenging. But the biggest challenge that we have in front of us today is, we often talk about in the minority community, when the majority community has a cold, the minority community has the flu. And the minority community, I mean, they're hurting right now. I mean, just like everyone is hurting in COVID, but especially minority businesses. So I think it's going to be so important that we really focus on these minority businesses. Senator Holt, Secretary Holt, you talked about some big projects in Baltimore City. We got to be intentional and make sure that these minority businesses are going to be a part of these big projects, because part of the problem is we just get the crumbs. I mean, we get the crumbs and we can't grow the companies. So you don't have a lot of established minority businesses because of that. And if we're going to change, our Baltimore and our region, we've got to really focus on minority businesses. We got to get them the help that they need. And then we've got to be intentional to make sure that developers and private owners, and you talk to them, look, we've got to make this an inclusive opportunity for everyone. And minority businesses really need your support in that aspect. And hopefully you guys can, talk to the people that I know, Colin, great job what we're doing down at the Development Corporation. So we've got to keep doing that. We've got to be intentional, but we really need help from the state as well, you guys. And, we appreciate you taking the time today to get on the phone with us and talk to us, but minority businesses really need help. We've got to be intentional. It's critical.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrave. And one of our youngest business owners, I'm very proud of you, Deja, Miss Deja Kabir, Ice Queen.
Yes, thank you for having me here tonight. Very honored to speak with you guys today and share some of my experience. Definitely starting a business during COVID I've had some unique challenges of my own. Basically, I signed my lease and a week later the world shut down, which was a little discouraging, especially just being the first time that I've ever done anything like this. But I have a great team behind me of people that encouraged me along the way. So even though we had to open about 6 weeks later than we planned, we also, in that time, were able to create a plan for what we're going to do now and how we can be most effective with our business. I ended up having to kind of change my entire original business model from being an inside business to an outside business, which ended up working very well for us, but it was very weather dependent. So what I've definitely seen in these more recent months where the weather has gotten colder and Corona has spiked, that business has slowed substantially. We had to have more people staffed in the summertime just to kind of accommodate the outside business with people taking things outside and delivering them to our customers in a safe, fashionable manner. But now we have decided to close for the next few months. So I closed December 20th, and I won't be ready to open back up again until April 1st. Just for the reason that business has slowed, I'm not able to staff people the correct way because we just don't have the funds in order to do that right now. And because I am a new business, we were actually unable to apply for some of the grants and things that were offered as relief because we just haven't been around long enough to qualify. So we still are applying, looking for, those opportunities, but it has been hard. Definitely, there have been some challenges that I didn't even think about when coming into starting my own business that I now have had to just be creative with trying to still continue the business and not go under. And in the area that I'm from, a lot of the Black-owned businesses are struggling. So I'm from the Locust Point area. And that, for example, there's Serenity Wine Bar, which is just down the street from me, which has been struggling the entire year, really, just keeping people in there. No one really wants to go out right now. Restaurants are definitely got hit hard with this, with not being able to have people inside and not being able to run business how they usually would in prior years. I think that's one advantage that I did have coming into this. I didn't have to change anything that I was doing. I just had to kind of adapt to what was set before me. So we've just had to be very creative with what we're doing. We do have a plan going into this next year with how we can reach out to people, how we can still keep both our customers safe and our employees safe. But we have had to close, and that's probably been one of the most hard things that we've had to face during this time, because though I'm closed, my rent is still due. And taxes are still a thing. And so it's just been a number of challenges. I'm so grateful for my team. I'm so grateful for all the people that have reached out to me, showed support, and asked how they can help. But it's definitely been very, very hard. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kabir. And good to hear that from, I wasn't thinking of it from a business that just started up during COVID-19. So I appreciate that, that highlighting that. I'm going to go over to Mr. Quentin Lathan.
Thank you, Senator McCray. Thank you for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm Quentin Lathan, the owner and operator of Beauty Plus Beauty Supply, located at 2107 North Charles Street. We're moving into our second location in the Northwest Shopping Center next to Baltimore City University. So I'm really, really happy about that. The one thing about COVID and its impacts on our business, we had to kind of adapt on the fly. When the governor put the stay-at-home order in place, we didn't know what we were going to do. So, with that happening, we had to be creative. We had to take our business to, outside as far as delivering products to folks and kind of doing like a curbside, doing curbside also. But the main impacts from COVID, number one is the employees, having employees, getting infected with COVID and things like that, having to shift around. So we did get a burden as far as staff. Number two, we had a burden as far as getting products to us, because we are a beauty supply store, beauty retail. When you're having issues with, the mail and getting stuff delivered and getting products to us, that affected us. Also, where we source some of our products from, our supply lines got affected. And then also, customers are used to coming into the store, so they had to pretty much adapt to this new way that we had to get them products. So it's been pretty burdensome, especially in, PPE and keeping the store safe. Now that we're open and we're operating, we're constantly spending money on cleanings products to clean everything and wipe everything down, and hand sanitizer. So if we can get any help in any of those areas, that'll definitely be key. PPP, just hand sanitizing and the cleaning cost, it can definitely be a burden on, small businesses here in the city. I definitely agree with, keeping everybody safe, but it's just those small areas like, just having backup staff, as people get affected and shifting your business around, and, having the means to just change your delivery model. We used to people coming into the store and we had to take everything kind of mobile on the fly. So the impacts, we just had to adjust to everything, but I hope that the state will have some solutions and some support on, even if find a way to get us some hand sanitizer and stuff like that. It'll be very, very helpful, because people overlook those cleaning burdens and masks. We provide some masks to our customers sometimes, and we also sell some. But just looking out for the community and the people that's less fortunate that don't have masks and stuff, we'll provide it and do things like that. So any support in those efforts would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Lathan. And last but not least, home to the 45th, ever since I was a kid, Dr. Joanne Martin from the Great Blacks and Wax Museum.
Thank you, Senator McCray.
Dr. Martin, I partially see your face. Yep.
I don't know what to do now. Let's see.
There we go. Yes, ma'am.
I'll have to hold it then. I want to thank you, Senator McCray, for and the Baltimore City Senate delegation for inviting Great Blacks and Wax to participate on this panel. And I want to thank you, and in particular, for believing in the Great Blacks and Wax Museum and always trying to do whatever you can to support us. It is very much appreciated, as are you. In looking at the challenges and opportunities of COVID-19, as a form of background, February, for all of the time that we have existed, Black History Month has been one of our busiest months, not the busiest month, however, and I'll explain that later. So we came off in 2020, we came off of a February where we had visitors. Most of our visitors come from out of state. So we had a museum filled with visitors in February, a very good February. And what normally happens is that as a tourist attraction, we go into spring break. And that's what we were looking to happen. And then, but COVID-19 hit, Great Blacks and Waxes, other businesses and cultural attractions was locked down. And therefore, all of the revenue, the events, and those revenue streams that we would have expected began, the tours and so forth, just a string of cancellations. And so spring break didn't happen, and that revenue stream didn't happen. Our busiest month is July, because we are a part of the African American, and a very important part of the African American tourism industry. So all of the revenue that we would have expected from our busiest month, July, did not happen. Summer months, because we're a tourism organization, did not happen. When we opened up, it was September, going into what we call our slow period. So that has been a part of the COVID-19 challenge for us. Also, this whole notion of us being a part of the African American tourism industry, where we are underfunded and underappreciated and underpromoted. When we look at the fact that we're telling people to see the glories of Baltimore history, see the glories of Baltimore's African American culture, a city that produced and helped to produce a Frederick Douglass or a Thurgood Marshall or a Harriet Tubman or a Billie Holiday. That we want you to see that, but close your eyes to the blight, the vacant buildings, and all of those challenges that we face in our African American tourism market. And therefore, just those kinds of challenges. Having to find yourself pitted against museums that and cultural attractions that get millions of dollars annually. Some museums and cultural attractions that have gotten more, who get more annually than Great Blacks and Wax has gotten for the time that it has been in existence. That becomes a challenge. The COVID-19 response has been encouraging, but we know that it's going to be temporary. We know that there were some people who discovered that something could be done only in response to COVID-19 and not as a way of helping consistently those minority-led organizations, those Black-led organizations that continue to struggle, even though we work from the trenches trying to assure that our children have a sense of a future, a sense of the possibilities of life. So those, for me, are the challenges that we continue to face. And for many of us, the struggle continues.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. I'll go after my colleagues, but I just want to see if my colleagues have any questions. And I see Senator Carter has a question. Senator Carter.
Thanks, Chairman McCray, and thank you for participating, everybody. I think this is a very informative discussion, and I'd be curious to know from our business owners, maybe not tonight, but you can follow up with us. But tonight, if you have suggestions, legislatively, what do you think we need to do to enhance the funds and the resources and programming that's already there? The second thing, I'm just going to take a liberty because I have to go in like a second. As soon as I talk, I have to go, unfortunately. So, and my question for Mr. Holt, Secretary Schultz, is, you heard from Deja and Quentin and from Dr. Martin, and I was actually particularly interested in those businesses that have not existed long enough to be able to benefit from the funds. So that's one question is, how are we closing those gaps? The second question is, Colin, you mentioned that you were happy to say that over 60% of the resourcing that you were able to do was both women and persons of color. I'd be specifically interested in the percentage for Black-owned businesses in Baltimore City and how many, if any, fall into these categories of businesses that haven't been in existence for very long and aren't able to avail themselves of all of the resources that the larger ones and longer standing ones are. And I'll take my answer. I'm off. I'll go on mute. Thank you.
Secretary Schultz.
Answer specifically on the rounds that I mentioned, the first two rounds, specifically Black-owned businesses was around 28% of the total funds. About 63 to 65% of the total funds were for persons of color. So it was actually the largest percentage of the minority-owned businesses were Black-owned businesses. And to the comment on the businesses that were relatively new, I think we're adjusting that. So we were trying to take care of the businesses that have been in our neighborhoods or established. But as we go forward and we continue to have more resources, we keep widening the criteria. So the next round of grants will probably just be more open to others because we have had a few people who were in the same situation where they opened a week or two right before the pandemic. But what we were trying to prevent was giving funding to folks that went open during the pandemic, because we've actually had a handful of restaurants and other businesses open, kind of eyes wide open going in. And so we wanted to try to help those who have been obviously caught off guard.
Senator,
So, yeah, Senator, I'll very quickly, thank you for the question, Senator Carter, and it's good to see you. I'll say a couple of things about what I heard from the business community. I'll say the first is that if the gentleman is having a difficult time finding any type of PPE, hand sanitizers, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to our office, because I know that there's an abundance of that, and I don't know if that was an issue that was at the beginning of the pandemic or if it's still current, but we're happy to help, put them in contact with somebody that can help to provide that for their retail business. We've been asked this question by the legislature very frequently since our programs at the Department of Commerce were basically the first in the country to start a business relief program. We started the programs on March 23rd. So our goal on March 23rd, where all of the applications came in, over 30,000 applications, as you know, within the first 2 weeks, was meant to provide relief to those businesses that were already in business. So all of the applications that were there were businesses that had been open, I believe, by March 1st of 2020. Now we're in 2021, right? So it's a little bit different based on the applications that we had received back at the very beginning of the pandemic. So I can see where some jurisdictions are altering some of their requirements and their eligibility requirements based on the time frame that the businesses were open. But of course, we continue to help businesses in all capacities. But our programs at the Department of Commerce are no longer open for applications. All of the additional funding, the $80 million of relief funds and the $50 million of hotel funds have gone out to the local jurisdictions so that they can quickly and efficiently get the money directly to the business owners instead of going through the Department of Commerce. And Colin and his team have been a great resource for that. And then I'll just say about the demographics. Obviously, that has also been a very common question that's been asked to us. On our state applications, it is not mandatory for any applicant to answer the questions about demographics or geographic, how we know which county, but they do not have to answer those questions. So we have limited data. With the limited data that we have from our first few rounds of the grants that went out, it was pretty much in line with the percentage of statewide minority-owned businesses as opposed to the number of grants that went to those minority businesses. And I'm happy to provide you the breakdown with that. But understanding that there was limited data or incomplete data, as I've liked to say over the course of the last 9 months to get that out, we have opened up a state survey to all of the 12,000 businesses that have received funding from the Department of Commerce to see if more of those businesses would come forward to be able to comment on the surveys so that they can tell us a little bit more about the demographics so that we could have a more complete picture. But they are not obligated to get state funds to fill out any type of demographic data, as I'm sure all the senators on this call know about that.
Thank you.
But as soon as we get that complete data, I'm happy to forward it to the Senate.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Secretary Holt, if you wanted to quickly respond, then we'll go to questions from the senator.
I think the 2020 startup is something that we need to address. It's a real problem because what we wanted was perspective as to a business model that had been functioning in 2019 or earlier, so we could measure the impact of COVID. But when you're starting a business, you're putting a lot of capital at risk and at work before you open your business. And I think it's unfair that that sort of sunk capital could be lost or stranded. And so we're going to try to address this. I'm hopeful that federal CARES money that's going to flow in will give us the capital to address it. And then just real quick on from a procurement standpoint within our agency, we issue a little bit more than 30% of all of our procurement awards to minority businesses.
Thank you, Secretary Holt. Senator Hayes, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Senator McCray. Quick thing, and I've had this conversation with Secretary Schultz, and it is a challenge to identify the demographics of the people who receive the money, and that may be something that either department might want to volunteer for. We as a legislator look for emergency legislation to require, because it doesn't provide an opportunity for us to really see that people of color are, benefiting from this. I guess my question is though, Colin, I think, spoke to it. They've made several changes to make sure that equity was provided and there was an equal distribution in different sectors of business. Given, the first two rounds, and I think, the incoming administration has made some commitment from the federal government to push out some additional money. Do you all foresee any changes in the administration or the distribution of funds this next go round, knowing that, especially on a first come, first served basis, usually businesses that are already established and have the resources are usually the ones that benefit, and some of the startups and smaller businesses may not. Do you guys foresee making any changes to the next distribution of funds?
Well, I'll jump in here quickly. I think it's paramount that there be equity across the distribution channels. To this point, we tried to get as much money out into the system as possible, as quickly as possible. And there was uncertainty around where the money was going to come from, but I think Governor Hogan was very aggressive. We've learned a lot by the programs that we've stood up, and I think that what we have to do is to add more flexibility to make sure that we target those hard hit and those areas in Baltimore City, in minority communities that really desperately need help. We have to provide that. So I think we can make changes to our existing application process to address it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. One more want to step in, or can we ask questions of my senators? Any more questions from the senators?
I guess, did Secretary Holt have a response on going forward as additional funding may come available?
Well, I think yes, there will be.
I'm sorry, Secretary Schultz. I'm sorry, Secretary
okay.
Holt. I apologize.
When more funding might become available, I think that there's a legislative proposal that's going to be hitting your desks on Wednesday. That's the Governor's Relief Act, which has some more proposals in that for both businesses and families and community. I would say that is a $1 billion proposal. And I think that in the addition to what we have been able to provide as grants and low interest loans, which, by the way, have now been converted to grants from the Department of Commerce, is also tax credits going to the businesses, which will be a longer term effect, up to 4 months of tax savings for the small businesses. And I think that's equally as important to keep the cash in the pocket that they're maintaining. But as far as additional funds from the state, outside of the $1 billion package that we have put into the legislature for your consideration. And obviously on Wednesday, there's going to be a new administration in Washington, D.C. So I think we're all in this, the waiting game stage to see what else we can be able to put forward. But Senator, very respectfully, we are in the midst of a 90-day legislative session where I am happy, and I know that the governor and the entire administration is happy to work with everybody on this call in order to be able to come up with the best solutions for all of the businesses in the state.
Thank you. Mr. Talbert.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the issue of the new businesses. The reason why, and I think I did not mention it, because we didn't do first come, first serve, and we looked at each business, we did it based on tax returns, and that's why businesses that started prior to or after 2019 weren't eligible. Now that we've gone a year beyond, we have that data, but that was the main driver. And So it wasn't a perfect system. And obviously we're trying to take care of those businesses that kind of got caught in that 2 or 3 month period. But I just wanted to put that on the record as to why that date was chosen. It was so that we could calculate based on need.
Thank you. Just want to ask, is there any more questions before we get to start to close? So thank you. We felt it fitting to hold tonight's briefing on MLK Day as Dr. King stood firm in his mission to connect people to their government and allow representatives to hear directly from people. Dr. King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? This quote guides my public service. This evening, I can say that each of us here right now have provided a service to our small businesses across the city of Baltimore. And I hope you leave this evening inspired to do more for others. And I'd just like to say thank you to each panelist for joining us tonight for the delegation's inaugural grassroots briefing. Your insights provided my colleagues and I and people across the city of Baltimore a briefing on the challenges and opportunities facing in the era of COVID-19. I'd like to lift up once again Senator Murray Washington, Senator Joe Carter, Senator Antonio Hayes, Senator Charles Sidnor, and Senator Bill Ferguson, just for this moment, because we all know the importance of what the time that we have in front of us and the businesses that need to sustain within the city of Baltimore. If the hour wasn't long enough, please feel free to continue the conversation by connecting with us via social media. The Baltimore City Senate delegation is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You may also visit us at bcsdelegation.com. We will be holding these grassroots briefings every Monday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. during a legislative session. We hope that you'll join us next week for our conversations with university and college presidents. Again, just wanted to say thank you again for this opportunity and for enhancing the opportunities for our city, and look forward to you all joining you all the rest of the session. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a blessed night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night,
This was
everyone.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.